helplessly as fences were torn from their little terraced gardens by men armed with oxyacetylene torches. Throughout the country, churches and public buildings were shorn of their wrought iron glory. At the time, the people of Britain were told that the metal would be melted down to build war-winning munitions. But their sacrifice was in vain. Part way through this act of vandalism, our leaders were informed that it was the wrong sort of metal. What the arms industry really needed was quality Sheffield steel, not wrought iron. The nation had been duped, but, keen not to lose face, the authorities carried on picking clean our crafted heritage, even though they knew it was not fit for the purpose. In a final, desperate act of deception, the national stockpile of plundered railings was secretly dumped at sea under cover of darkness, and the general public, none the wiser, carried on proudly believing that they had helped to win the war by donating their ironware. Dad and Ted couldn't see much as they headed for Pike Hill, an elevated suburb on the town's outskirts. It was the age of the blackout. Hitler's Heinkels and Dorniers were in the skies, looking for somewhere to drop their lethal high-explosive bombs. To thwart this threat, every streetlight in the country had been turned off. Vehicle headlights were covered, and blackout cloth was fitted to the windows of every household in the land. Home was 13 Chiltern Avenue, a modest semi-detached house where Dad lived with my mum, Edna. I was to be their only child. Dad was 32 when I was born, and Mum was 5 years younger. Dad and his brother Jack were master cabinet makers. They crafted hand-built furniture. Their company letterhead proclaimed H. Elliott Furniture Manufacturer. It was a family business, inherited from their father, Hartley Elliott. I never knew my grandfather. He died penniless 8 years before I was born, leaving his 2 sons in debt and saddled with a crumbling rented building that dated back to the Industrial Revolution and was equipped with ancient woodworking machinery and not much else. It seems that Hartley had been a colourful character, always immaculately dressed, who spent most of his life playing chess with local, wealthier businessmen in the Mechanics Institute. He had grand ideas, and he liked to show off. As a young man, he'd had a furniture factory built in nearby Nelson, complete with a high mill chimney. When the work was completed, rumour has it that Grandad performed a headstand on top of the newly erected smokestack. Hartley had been married twice and had sired 9 children, Jack and Dad being the final 2 from his second wife. The old boy was an early riser, and at dawn he would enter Jack and Bob's bedroom, throw back the curtains, open the windows and bellow, "Waken, lords and ladies gay, to the mountain dawns the day. All the jolly chase is here with hawk and horse and hunting spear." In the early days of the war, Britain was fighting for its life against Hitler's hordes, and my father and uncle were doing their bit. By night they kept the family business going by making chests of drawers and sideboards for local customers. By day they made parts for the Horsa troop-carrying gliders, and later plywood sections for the twin-engine Mosquito fighter bomber at the local joinery firm of Earnshaw Brothers and Booth. The wood and canvas flying machines would be used in the invasion of mainland Europe. The plan was that they would carry British soldiers across the Channel to France, hauled by obsolete RAF bombers or American DC-3 Dakota transport aircraft. On reaching their target zones, the gliders would release themselves from the tow plane's cable, and the soldiers at the controls would, hopefully, land safely on a flat, smooth field in pitch darkness, praying that the Germans hadn't seen them. Unknown to Herr Hitler, hidden away in towns throughout Britain, workers were beavering away, manufacturing whatever was needed to keep the Third Reich at bay. Probably the best example was at nearby Barnoldswick, where, tucked away in old cotton mills, Rolls-Royce was quietly making aero engines for Spitfires and Lancasters, while Frank Whittle and his team were secretly developing the jet engine. My dad was also a fine motorcyclist and was recruited as a dispatch rider for the Home Guard. He held down 3 jobs in the grim days of World War II. In the 1940s, the view from our front garden on Chiltern Avenue was quite impressive. The hillside sloped down to the pastoral expanse of Townley homes, with the grand 500-year-old hall and woodlands to the left, contrasting with the dozens of smoking mill chimneys to the right. I remember hearing the distant clank of the steam-powered freight trains as they coasted down the valley behind the old hall, sounding like a wheezing old man with a wooden leg walking down a passageway. The locomotive would later return from Rose Grove sidings, hauling a rake of fully loaded wagons, struggling and snorting, wheels spinning, as driver and fireman attempted to get it up.